Hello and welcome to the devlog for Nock Hidden Arrow update 0.1.1.1. We got a lot of good stuff in this update, so let's go in and take a look. The first thing that we've got is a change to movement. No, it's not touchpad locomotion, though that is coming. What we've got is more freedom when you're out and about exploring, and a little bit more in the way of restrictions once you get into combat. So there used to be a speed limit in effect, no matter what you were doing, where if you had your weapon out, you would move at a maximum of about 5 meters per second. That was the rate that your teleport meter would recharge at. When you put your bow away, it would go to double that, 10 meters a second, and you could store up to a maximum of 20 meters of movement. So this was done to limit you somewhat, so you couldn't just dash willy-nilly everywhere, and to give you a little more freedom when you're moving outside of combat. The idea being if you really were going to travel from one place to another a lot, you just put your bow away and you book it. But this was still kind of limiting, especially if you ended up in a situation where you've got something you forgot on the other side of the dungeon, you've got to go back and find that one extra monster because the east wing isn't cleared, that kind of thing. So what I've done is removed all restrictions on movement speed while teleporting when you're not in combat. But once you get a tense situation where creatures become aware of you, or you end up in melee range, or you attack or get hit, then restrictions come into play. So the first is you're back to charging your distance at 5 meters a second as soon as enemies are alerted. So as soon as you've got a tense situation, you're not going to be able to just dash away to the other side of the dungeon instantly. You'll have to wait until they lose interest, or you kill them, or something like that, and then your freedom comes back. The second thing is when you're in melee range, you're limited to 5 meters total distance. So basically, you might have 20 meters stored up because you haven't been moving around much while they're alerted to you. But as soon as one of them comes into melee range, your storage drops down to 5 meters. Basically, you get just enough to jump backwards out of range again, and you can continue to charge more after that. Or if you jump through them, you'll find it's just far enough to be in melee range on the other side, and you'll still have that limit. So this will mean that you tend to want to jump away from them rather than towards and through them. Though sometimes it'll probably still make sense to jump through them if you want better positioning, that kind of thing. But it is a decision that you'll make on purpose. The second thing is, if you get hit or you attack, your movement meter is completely emptied and starts to recharge again. So you want to choose carefully when you're going to make those strikes. You can't just shoot and teleport away, that kind of thing. And you'll also want to make sure that you don't get, well, I mean, you don't want to get hit anyways, but if you do get hit, you're going to find it a little harder to get away. The second thing that we've got is I've added in a trajectory prediction. Like basically there's an arrow tracer that you can enable for your bow. This is in the options. There are 2 settings other than off, which is the default. You can set it to be enabled when you're holding the grip on the bow, or you can set it to be always on. If you set it to grip pressed, then when you squeeze the trigger while you have an arrow knocked and the bow pulled back, you'll see a projection of where the arrow will go. You can use this to become familiar with how the physics work in Nock, or just to make amusing distance shots, or just as a general aid. Maybe you want to play the game, but you just don't have the archery skills and don't really have any interest in building them. The third thing that we've got is possibly the most exciting here. We've got the first monster that actually behaves differently from the others. We've got a ranged goblin now, and this adds an interesting dynamic to the conflicts. Battles with the ranged goblins tend to feel a little bit like an archer's duel, which is pretty neat, I think. And when you end up with the ranged goblins mixed in with melee creatures, you end up with a pretty interesting combat dynamic, and it tends to change the sort of decisions that you're going to want to make, because you got more to worry about than just the slow melee mobs that you're dancing around filling full of arrows. So this is the first that we've got in the way of different behaviors for creatures, and I'm excited for what this is going to lead to down the road. So that's what I got for you this time. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you play through this, I'd love to hear your experience with the changes, any suggestions you've got to make it better, stuff you love, stuff you hate. Please let me know. I want to make Nock the best that I can. Thanks a lot. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.